Christy, you're back on.
So I just kind of wanted to give my thoughts to your question. How do we soften people's hearts? How do we get people past this narrative of being pro-life is evil, of being pro-life is backwards? And I think a lot of it is meeting where they're at. I know me and Joe have had this debate before about calling abortion genocide. I'm generally not a fan because I think it kind of it makes people who would be opposed to our message tune us out even more and say, oh, look at this. They're making light of someone else's suffering by saying abortion is the same thing. And do I ethically and morally and logically believe that killing the unborn is the same as killing an already born person? Of course. That's fundamental to my worldview and my life ethic. But do other people think that? And do I think that'll attract other people and soften their hearts? I don't. So I think really what we need to do is rewrite the narrative. And that's what frustrated me and made me so sick about last night's debate. They kept talking about reproductive rights and reproductive justice and this and that. And abortion is great when you tie it all into a pretty little bow. So I think you can't go in the other direction either. You can't make this sound like something good. I think there needs to be some sort of truth and accountability and showing people that there is a third way. You don't have to be, I don't know, the stereotypical pro-lifer throwing crucifixes at people. But you don't have to be pro-choice either. There is a third way. And that's what we need.
There's okay, what I'm hearing here is we have a lot of conflict, and it's a very touchy issue when you go out with your friends. And at the same time, we have to be able to speak our convictions and to stand for the rights of the unborn. But we want to do so in a way that's going to be effective. So how does tying in, how do I word this? I think something you had expressed before, and I agree with you, is how does the American Solidarity Party show us as different from other examples of pro-life that they may have seen as unsavory? What do we offer that's going to be a bigger solution? And then how do we hold people to the fire like Joe was talking about? And I agree with him that we need to be honest with where we stand with pro-life, but then at the same time showing this is achievable. And I guess what I'm getting at is it with tying it in with our consistent life ethic, or how do we get to that point of melting hearts, if you will? Oh, Joe's up. Sorry, Joe. I got you unmuted.
That's all right. From my perspective, and actually, Christy, I think you'll even like this. I think that we need two different kinds of people. We need the Christies and we need the Joes. And Christy responds to, again, people in crisis pregnancy, some of the safety nets, et cetera. And I believe in that strongly as well. However, you're in the South, right, Jeffrey?
I have moved even further south. I'm in Alabama. I'm as south as south gets.
Right. So what ended segregation?
Actually, it was several things, but it was enough people standing up and saying no more.
Yeah, people went to the streets and they created such a ruckus that finally it was enough of a ruckus to drive the legislation to stop segregation. It would be the same thing with abortion if you had a point man, like a president, who on the March for Life didn't stay in the Oval Office and send kind of a fun little letter or talk to them through a video screen, but went down to the streets and protested with them, but then went back to Des Moines and started to walk through somebody's neighborhood in order to evoke that kind of protest across the country on a regular basis. That, I believe, would end abortion tomorrow. But you have to create that kind of a climate, just like they created in the South in order to end segregation. Now, I believe strongly it would work. The problem is, like you were talking about, there's the pro-life people right now, for the most part, Jeffrey, have been moderate Republicans who have gotten into office and done virtually nothing except for to tweak a couple pieces of legislation for the most part. This thing that's evolving right now, where they're trying to push something to go to the Supreme Court, which actually the thing out of Alabama was a good thing. I don't think, though, that that's going to be the answer. I think it's a partial answer, but I don't think that's going to stop abortion. So again, you need somebody who can evoke that kind of a climate.
Yeah, I agree, especially with the fact that if we're based on legislation, what we've seen on other things is it could switch back and forth as soon as the next group comes in. But I had been paying attention that before some of the recent legislation happened in the South, that there had been legislation, I'll pick on the North, that was moving abortion in the other direction. I think New York, I think
Sure. Illinois
Yeah.
right now. Yeah.
I think, and for some, it was an ability to point to what it really is. So how can we truthfully point to what it is, but yet also come across in a way that people are going to listen? And that's tricky. So there takes some finesse with that. It obviously takes honesty, but I'm kind of curious. I'm going to go back to Christy with this one because I love putting her on the spot. And what do you think when you interact with your friends? What do you think they respond to in when they hear a positive pro-life message? What is it that they're responding to?
Sure. So I was president of my school Students for Life Club my senior year of college. And I remember this one girl coming up. And we just my brother actually, who was sitting here before making comments, I don't know if you guys could hear. We were volunteering at like a bake sale or something, and she came up to us and she said, I used to be pro-life, I'm pro-choice now. And she kind of just told us her story, and we just listened and were compassionate and had that ear and said, look, we're not trying to shame anyone. We're not trying to condemn anyone. We're trying to empower women to choose life. And she said, you're the first pro-life people who haven't called me a baby killer. And that was shocking. And I think that honestly, listening as much as you're talking really turns people on to your kind of side of things. And making people see that you're consistent too, making people see, hey, I really don't want to control anyone's body. Like, honestly, I want to help women. I believe that we should have these social safety nets. I believe that we should have maternity leave and affordable childcare and all these things. And it's sad how much that shocks people.
Okay, that was very good. All right, do you guys have anything else, or do you want to go back to the debate for a little bit, Joe?
One other thing I want to say with that. We have, as we travel, we have stand in solidarity with people protesting all over the country in front of abortion clinics, that kind of thing, with our children. And Christy, just as one example, and it's extension of what you were talking about, our daughter, Sarah, who was 8 years old at the time, she is standing with a group of people protesting, and she saw a young woman walking towards the abortion clinic. Sarah's voice, this little 8-year-old voice, called out and said, God, please don't kill your baby. She loves you. She just wants you to love her in return. There was total silence. The girl turned and looked at our Sarah, started to cry, hesitated, and still walked into the clinic. There's a possibility that maybe a year, 2 years from then, she got pregnant again and maybe heard Sarah's voice. I'm not sure. But there is, Christy, tremendous need for that kind of thing. But where the baby killers are right now are these legislators and these Democrats that are pushing the legislation in order to keep killing these people. And just like in Nazi Germany, somebody had to stand up and in a very vocal, assertive, even aggressive way, stop it. And that's what needs to happen with this too. It needs to be that combination.